What's going on, everyone, and welcome to Method in the Madness. This is the podcast that not only delves deep into design and creativity, but also leadership, productivity, and all things personal development. And this is episode 12, and I get to sit down with a dear friend of mine, Helena Good, who is the design lecturer at Edinburgh College, but she is also the founding partner of the Daydream Believers program, which is a new initiative that brings together creative professionals along with secondary school pupils to help those pupils develop the essential skills such as creativity, critical thinking, and problem solving. And while I've known Helena for a number of years through the mentoring scheme, I was really looking forward to catching up with her to kind of hear more deeply about her journey into design and creativity, but also creative education. Discuss how the mentoring scheme at Edinburgh College has grown from this small 5 or 6 individuals into this award-winning program with over 25 mentors now that students actually come to the course for the mentoring scheme. And of course, we also talk at length about Daydream Believers, how it started, what the reception of the launch has been like, how the reception with the teachers has been, and where Helena and those involved hope to take it in the future. And, if there's anyone to kind of get it there, it will definitely be Helena. She is a force of nature for sure. And this episode is also brought to you by Dinghy. And what is Dinghy? Dinghy is insurance for freelancers by freelancers. And they are on a mission to make insurance cheaper, faster, and most importantly, fairer. Dinghy's groundbreaking approach offers flexible, pay-as-you-go business insurance exclusively for freelancers. And this is all done through their simple and very slick app. And with that, you get, insurance that can be turned up or down, on or off 24/7, meaning that you only actually pay for the coverage you need. And this is also charged by the second and billed in arrears. There's absolutely no fees or admin charges ever, and you can get a quote within 40 seconds and a policy just within 2 minutes after only answering 8 questions, which is awesome if you've got an attention span like me. And their insurance is not only tailored specifically for freelancers, but Dinghy also support freelancer groups and charities with the aim of improving freelancing and the world in general. So visit the following link today and get your quote in seconds. So head over to getdinghy.com/MITM. That's GETDINGHY.com/MITM. It's an awesome service, so by all means, please go and check it out. And so, without much further ado, please welcome Helena Good to Method in the Madness. Helena Good, thank you very much for coming on the show. How are you doing?
I'm doing very well. Thank you very much for having me along.
No, more than welcome. We first met, I was calculating this the other day, like looking back, but which is somewhat depressing as well. But we first met through Ian Kirkby when, oh God, 8 years ago now it was, when he first introduced me to the mentoring program at Edinburgh College. And I think at that point there were 5 or 6 mentors, including myself.
Yeah.
And you had your first kind of mentoring day or evening of the semester last week. And how many mentors did you have on board now?
So this year we've been really lucky. We've got 27 mentors.
Jeez, oh.
I know, it's growing.
Can't even fit them all in the classroom. I saw the photo.
Yeah, I had to go to the canteen,
That's crazy though. Is it not kind of weird to see how crazy it's grown in such a short space of time?
I think it's been hugely inspiring, and I think one of the most inspiring part is that we're now getting our students coming back as mentors. So these are people who have experienced the mentor program. It's now in its 11th year, and they're now working in industry, and they've come back, and I think that has giving back has always been a very much a key focus of our course.
Yeah, sure.
And of my kind of teaching ethos, really.
Yeah, that's crazy. They've gone full circle.
Yeah, it's lovely.
And they come back, so you must be doing something very well.
Well, they just either that or they say it's quite hard to say no to me.
You do have your persuasive ways. But for those of you who don't know, Edinburgh College that Helena runs the kind of design course of have a mentoring scheme where they pair up students every year with kind of creative professionals, whether that's designers or photographers or account managers or whatever else disciplines there may be. And it has been an absolute huge success from kind of day one. That was always packed out when there was only 5 or 6 mentors,
Yeah,
and now
yeah,
obviously with 27 mentors, it's
yeah.
just going from strength to strength. That mentoring scheme is now like award winning, I suppose, with SQA awards and things like that, isn't it?
Yeah, well, I think it has been recognized in that aspect. But I think the key of it all is when you see, I think on last Thursday, I saw, our students very nervous, asking questions, are they going to be real? Will they be nice? And there's this disconnect, no matter how hard you try to change that, but there is a disconnect between the real world and education.
Yeah.
And when our young people saw these people wanting to come back and give their time for free, come in an evening having done a day's work, and just sit with them and go, okay, this is the before. I'm going to walk with you on this journey. What do you need from me? How can I help you? And from any young person's point of view, to have someone who really cares about you,
Yeah, of
who's
course.
invested in you, and says, let's walk this together.
I was about to say, because it's like when I was in uni, we had nothing like that. I mean, you
Hmm.
got the opportunity to go on placement, but it's not the same thing
No.
of having somebody who you can drop an email to, fire a text to. I mean, there's some of the students that I've mentored over the years that I still meet up for coffees and we still chat and we still
Yeah,
keep in touch, and it's you kind of forget that you were that person for somebody, but
absolutely.
now they're becoming mentors as well, so it's
Yeah.
kind of full circle, like I said.
I think the rewarding thing is looking at the before. And I
Mm,
think, the kind of program started because exactly Ian Kirkby, who at the time was working at Lewis Design, he sort of asked a question. He said, why do we see the students at the end of the course
yeah.
when, it's kind of the work is done? And I think that that's the same for a lot of employers. They're only allowed in to engage when our students graduate.
Yeah.
So we tried to look at, well, why don't we leave the door open and let it be that industry can come in at any time, and that they can journey as much as we do with our students, and
Yeah.
that they therefore you share the kind of the ups and downs of all of that, but you also get, I think, huge satisfaction when you see a student and their story, and that's not just in terms of the work that they've produced, and that's for many of young people all the other struggles that happen outside of a classroom.
Yeah, precisely. I mean, like, I know anyway that some of the students that I've mentored over the years, they've some of the things that we've probably chatted more about is not even design or creativity led.
Absolutely.
It's more just like personal struggles or whatever it may be. But you're
Absolutely.
just there to be a bit of a soundboard for them.
Yeah.
Um,
And our young people, they need that more than ever, I think.
oh yeah, I think so. I think so. I wonder why that is, but
I think that there is again a kind of disconnect. Families, are busy. There isn't the kind of same community that there would
mm,
have been before, and there's more pressure on them.
yeah. Have you seen a change in the time? I know the mentoring scheme's only been going for 11 years, but even within that time, have you seen a change in that happen in the students?
Yeah, I think that our students are now asked to kind of, be and do a lot more.
Mm,
They need to have a breadth to their skills. There's higher expectations of them, but they also put a lot of pressure on themselves,
yeah.
and I think that's difficult.
Yeah.
Our theme, we decided this year that we'd have a theme called Get Real.
All right. Okay.
And we kind of talked to the mentors about that. And part of that is bringing the real world into the classroom, which is a big focus for us. For the mentors to be real with the students,
Yeah.
this is okay, but you could work a lot harder, And what's lovely in that relationship is that they can be very real.
Yeah.
Whereas probably in education, we're a bit more controlled in
Well, yeah.
in what we can and can't do. And the other aspect of that was for our students to be real with each other. And, it can surprise you that you could sit in a classroom with someone for a whole year and they don't actually really know you.
Yeah. Yeah, that is weird. That certainly happened a little bit at my uni
Yeah.
anyway. But yeah, it's strange how that happens and how
Yes.
that kind of, you reckon if you're in there every single day, then you naturally just get to know one another. But
Yeah.
hey ho.
It sometimes doesn't happen.
Yeah.
So we're trying to get them, that simple. I love that question. Are you okay?
Mm.
Just getting them to ask that and see if people open up or,
Yeah, it's
um,
kind of odd. Like this, like, people will ask that question in different ways.
yeah,
However, if you actually come out with, is everything okay?
yeah,
It suddenly has a bit of, it resonates differently than
absolutely,
how are you doing?
absolutely,
Um, which I think is probably important for
yeah,
mental health and all kinds
yeah,
of sorts of
yeah,
things they're
very
probably
much so.
dealing with at college that probably didn't occur to me when I was at uni. But
No.
what was the kind of one of the kind of triggering points for the mentoring scheme?
I think it was that. It was to just look at, what would happen if industry walked with us,
Hmm.
if employers actually became part of the journey. And I can understand in education from a teaching and a lecturing point of view, that can be difficult because in order for that to happen, you have to accept a vulnerability.
Yeah.
So I've had situations in my class where someone has come in from industry and they've talked about something and they've said, what we're doing or what we've been involved in, that isn't what happens anymore.
Yeah.
And that was 6 months ago, and it's changed. And so I can understand that can make you feel sort of vulnerable. So
Hmm.
that's why I think in education we like to kind of close the door. Well, as long as I keep them outside, then
Yeah,
I
because then
have
you can
control.
control it. Yeah,
Absolutely.
precisely.
But that's really boring. And the really interesting thing is, as an educator, you have to do exactly what everyone in industry is doing at the minute, is wing it.
Yeah.
So, we think it's this, but you come in and you tell us. Or if a student says to me, I'd like to know, and say, well, I don't know that, but I know someone who does,
Mm.
and I know they'll come in and tell us about it.
Yeah, no, that's one of the things I love kind of working with yourself in the college though, because you're constantly asking for feedback.
Yeah.
Like constantly. Like
Yes.
you're never just like, here's the agenda for the year,
Yeah.
deal with it. It's also like, should we be doing this more? How do you think this went? And how
Yeah.
do you think this went? And it's actually kind of refreshing for A, to be asked the question by a
Yeah.
college, because most of them just want to kind of do a checkbox exercise.
Yeah. Yeah.
But also for you to actually implement
Yeah.
the changes as well.
I mean, it was quite interesting. I do remember someone saying to me, Helena, you keep pushing and you keep trying. Maybe this is the year to just plateau. And I
Just
remember,
chill out for a year,
well, I
Helena.
thought,
God's sake.
well, I just think, I can plateau when I'm dead.
Yeah.
Do you know? Plateau is flat.
Well, it's like if that's the attitude to have, then you'll be swept away. Like, you can either evolve or
Yes.
you will be left behind,
Yeah.
basically. So,
And we're in an industry that is so exciting and so inspiring. There's so much changing.
hmm.
And I think that it's my role as an educator to inspire our young people and to, get them to think about possibilities, what ifs.
Yeah.
And that's what I try and do. And I'm often, when I get a lot of our students together, particularly if you've got in the mentor program where you've got students who've maybe been with us for 10 years and you introduce the new crop of students, and I always say, this is our best year ever. So you have these people who have taught 10 years ago who said, you told that to me. It's kind of like the Bruce Forsyth of Strictly Come Dancing. You're
Yeah.
my favorite, But in a way, what that is it has to be the best year ever.
Mm.
And I have to make that because it changes so much. What was a good year, what was a best year 8 years ago, is
It's
no
not going to
longer the
cut it. Yeah.
case. So it's not necessarily even about them, it's more about me. That's the challenge that I set myself, to say, how do we make this for this group of people who've invested in our course, in me as a
Mm.
lecturer? How do you make it the best year ever?
Yeah. Well, I think you successfully accomplished that year on year
Well,
anyway.
you're
That's
very
for sure.
kind. You're
Do
very
you
kind.
find now that obviously the mentoring scheme is well God, I cannot talk. The mentoring scheme is well established.
Yeah.
Got it out. Easy for me to say. Now that it is established, do you find that more students are kind of flocking to the course specifically, like it's like a unique selling point of that course, and also are people stealing the idea?
I think, do you know what? I think it's an idea. We all mentor,
Yeah,
it's not an exclusive kind of product. You could mentor someone by just helping them at the bus stop.
yeah,
And you have no idea what an impact that might be. It might be someone you meet, and that you go to buy your coffee from, and they have a chat with you. I think more and more our students are looking at what's been offered in education in terms of value for money,
yeah,
and they're looking at it and saying, if I invest in this course, what is the potential for me to get the next step?
yeah.
And that might be employment, it might be further education,
Or
and I
just going out on their
are
own as
just going
well.
out on their own as freelance. And I think, that's a great thing. And I think that, they're right to do that.
Yeah,
And they're right to ask about in each course, where do you engage with employers? Where is the real world in this experience?
yeah. Well, that's the thing. Like, you need to get people ready for the industry because
Absolutely.
once you're in it, you know yourself. Like, it's a pretty fast moving industry, and the last thing I know it doesn't sound great, but the last thing anybody wants is to kind of have to sit and handhold. You know, if somebody can come
Absolutely.
in and they're ready and raring to go, then
Yes.
oh my god, like well, that's it's like a Brucey bonus.
Absolutely, absolutely. And that's what we try, it's our aim to do that. But also to be nice, design and creative industries is a community.
Hmm?
And yes, you might, be a stunning craftsman, you might know all the skills in terms of the computers and things like that, but be nice people, and you have a higher chance of being employed.
Yeah,
And
way higher chance, I can tell you.
absolutely.
Um, what was I going to say? Completely forgotten. Hold on. Oh yeah, that was it. You know, do the students kind of realize how unique it is, the mentoring scheme? Like, I'm sure, like, it's like one of these things that you don't realize until once you get to the end of it,
Yes.
and then you kind of reflect back. But, you know, I certainly remember at uni, I had nothing like this. And in fact, we were kind of probably crying out for it.
Yeah.
You got your opportunity to go on placement in third year, but never was there such like a constant. I mean, the opportunity to be able to drop a creative director or senior designer at an agency that you could be going into an email and ask for some review on your folio or help,
Yeah.
that would have been invaluable for me at uni, and
Yeah.
probably would have ended up annoying the shit out of them as well. But do they see the value from the get
They,
go?
they do. I mean, we say it's a gift, and use it or lose it.
Hmm.
So if students don't engage, then we take them off the program, because it has to be. If you're willing as a mentor to be involved, it has to work out. Thankfully, we've never had to do
Yeah.
that. So they do. I think they see it as a gift. We use Slack, which is kind of transformed how the students communicate.
Yeah.
Um, what I hadn't realized is a lot of students find emails quite sort of formal.
Hmm.
So that's kind of, you can emoji, you can upload things, so that's kind of worked.
GIFs,
Yeah, absolutely.
animated GIF,
Yeah,
can do wonders for the world.
absolutely. Yeah.
You're obviously a huge, you obviously are a teacher of creativity and an educator and proponent of it. But when did you first kind of stumble upon creativity yourself?
Um, I mean, I think everybody's born creative. I think, as Ken Robinson said, we get it educated out of us. But I grew up in a border town in the north of Ireland, and I grew up through the Troubles.
Hmm.
So if you think Derry Girls, if you know that, I was there, but I wasn't one of the cool kids. I was a kind of tall, lanky, freaky thing, as one of the teachers told my younger sister.
Oh wow.
But I I was one of five. I am one of five kids. So around our tea table at night, there were seven of us,
Hmm.
and it would have been very easy to kind of, some people to be heard more than others. So as we sat around that table, my parents used to say to us, "Okay, everybody, tell us what was the best thing that happened to you today, and what was the worst thing." And what you learn quite quickly at an early age was the ability to tell a story,
Hmm.
the ability to kind of engage. You had about 2 minutes worth of,
That was your time.
attention. That was your time. And if you missed your spot, it was over to the next one. And I think, it's really interesting. Most of my family are in communication of some kind
All
of
right, that's
form.
cool.
And I think my parents always encouraged us to have an opinion, to tell a story, and to be creative and believe in ourselves.
Yeah.
And I think, I say when my students start, one of the things I say to them is, I'm going to make you even more attractive. And they kind of look at you and they think, oh, she got Botox, kind of, or what's she going to do? Am I getting a
What the hell have
facelift?
I signed up for?
Exactly. This woman's a weirdo. And what I get them to think about is the part of their soul that creativity touches into. And it's that bit that, when someone talks about something that they feel passionate about, when we're engaged and we're doing something that actually makes your heart sing, then you are incredibly attractive. And, getting people to think that that is what creativity does for you. It's that light that brightens up a room. It's that bit in your heart that makes you think, I will keep working on this. I will keep doing this because this makes me feel good.
Yeah.
And this is what I was born to do.
Oh, that's lovely. So such a nice way of thinking about it.
Well, there you go. I don't know if I've answered your question, but
No,
anyway.
you definitely have. Obviously, you're not just an educator in design, but you've obviously worked in the industry as well.
Yeah.
What were kind of some of the main motivations for you to move away from working in the industry as like a hands-on designer instead of kind of, you've obviously now become an
Yeah.
educator.
Yeah.
Was there like a tipping point or something that made you kind of think, oh, maybe
Well,
I'll try
I
education?
think I would say it's in my blood. Both of my parents are teachers,
All right,
and their
okay.
parents were teachers, so that in one
Definitely in
way,
your blood
there
then.
it wasn't escaping it. I think quite quickly I kind of realized that I didn't care that deeply about the space between a K and an E. And I realized when I stood up to speak in front of people that I became alive, and I would say that I've been incredibly fortunate that I have chosen a career that's my vocation.
Yeah, yeah.
And that means that I love my job, and it's something. Yeah, I think it's in my blood, and it's something that inspires me to keep going and keep doing do more. So yeah,
And how long have you been doing it now for?
I've actually been teaching now for over 26 years.
Wow,
I know, it's
that's awesome.
amazing. And people ask you, how can you keep going? And I think the interesting thing is every year it's different, because you bring a group of people into a room who are completely different from the group of people you worked with before.
Yeah.
And that's what makes it interesting.
Yeah, well, yeah, it's like a new wave every year.
Yes. Yeah,
And probably every year the course will slightly change
it
and,
does. Yeah,
tinker whatever it is because it is the way technology, how quickly it moves. But
absolutely.
no, obviously, well, not obviously to the listeners, obviously to me, one of the main reasons I wanted to get you on the podcast is to chat about the Daydream Believers program,
Yeah.
which I'll let you kind of describe what is the Daydream Believers program, how did it come about, and just tell us a little bit about it.
Yeah. So, um, I'm very good at asking people to give back.
I can vouch for that.
Absolutely. And I suppose one of the things I became aware of is that, I began to think, well, where am I giving back? And we are all very guilty, I think, in education of staying on what I call the super tankers.
Yeah.
So there's all these kind of tankers. One is, I think, how I see it, schools. Another one is college and universities. And every now and again, we jump ship and we go over and we visit and we tick a box and go, well, I kind of went to the schools and I sort of know. But there wasn't really any, for me, on my part, any meaningful engagement. So I was both what I would call ignorant and arrogant about what was going on in our schools.
Mm.
And if you look at that in a simple kind of business model, the schools for colleges and universities are our customers.
Yeah.
And no other business could afford to be ignorant and arrogant
No,
about their
absolutely not.
customers. So we looked at a way that we could engage with our schools. And in January 2017, Niamh Kern and Holly McNee, two of our college ambassadors, started a program called Creative Takeover, where they went into the schools and they started to talk to kids about, why they'd gone to college, what they were doing there, and jobs in the creative industries. And that went really well, but we were very aware we were only going to have maybe, we were limited by the amount of workshops they could do. So about a year and a half ago, we gathered some partners together with some of the teachers that we'd worked with. That was Whitespace, Amaze Realize, and Skyscanner. And we looked to what the World Economic Forum were predicting as the top 3 skills. So we thought about problem solving, critical thinking, and creativity. And we said, so education's a super tanker and we're getting on a speedboat.
Yeah.
And we just said to these people, will you come on board? So the wonderful thing about a speedboat is you actually don't really care where you're going. You just jump on board and you enjoy the journey. And part of it was like that. We just said, okay, let's imagine we can get 1 hour a week in a classroom. And the wonderful, inspiring Chris Davey came up with the idea, what we need in our schools is PE for the brain. So just like we have PE.
Such a lovely analogy, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. So we've got PE, that's timetable for our kids, which is about their physical well-being. But actually, what if we had something that was as broad as PE, but it was just about their mental well-being?
Yeah.
So we thought we were fantastic. Yes, this is brilliant. This is what it's going to be. And then one of the teachers enlightened us, which was brilliant. And that's why it was great having the teachers. And they said, you do realize that a lot of kids hate PE. And we're going, oh, yeah, well, we hadn't thought about that. And then another one said, and you also know that that's going to become P-brain. So we then looked back to what was a program that Holly and Niamh had helped us develop, which was Daydream Believers. And the name for that came from Neil Walker in Whitespace, and he described how his school report used to come home, and he would
Probably
dread
similar
it.
to mine.
Yeah, it was that. That a lot of us can identify with this.
Had trouble paying attention.
Absolutely. So Neil is very talented, but if he just stopped staring out the window, and concentrated, things would be great. And he shares the story openly, and shared it with our teachers. And he now says, I get paid to daydream.
Yeah.
So Daydream Believers is about connecting employers, lecturers, and teachers to create the curriculum and support and bring the real world in a really simple and effective way into our classrooms.
Yeah. It's an absolute amazing initiative. I remember you were telling me a story recently of, you're actually kind of like when you're running the pilot, you're kind of getting kids involved and to actually, effectively test it, see if it's going to work. And you're telling me about like a boy who, like, one of his parents just was telling him that he was going to end up in Tesco or something like that. And it's just, you forget that, I didn't have an upbringing like that. Thankfully, I had a very, parents were awesome. But like some people do have parents that just will kick their kids down like that, and kind of they won't aspire to be something out with their immediate realm, a lot of them kind of end up just following the trend of whatever the parents have maybe done. And it's such a shame because there's so many talented kids that whether it's the mentoring scheme or whether it's the actual kids that we've interacted with through the program as well, there's so many talented kids that we at Signal helped develop a lesson around empathy, as
That's
you know.
Right, yeah.
And you got us to kind of come in and do a little bit of a trial run. And I was, we're trying to get them to answer open-ended questions and learn how to interview someone properly and all this kind of stuff to kind of learn how to develop empathy skills. And I was absolutely blown away. Because how old were the kids that had them?
They were 13.
Yeah, when I was 13, I would have had no idea what an open-ended question was, or like. But as soon as you kind of told them what it was,
Absolutely.
They grasped onto it, and then they were asking some insanely, eloquent and insightful questions to yourself, who was pretending to be the client. But Yeah, it must just be kind of crazy to kind of see them latch onto this because the schools are clearly needing it.
Yes, and I think a couple of things about it. It's a free resource for teachers, and we've created it so that it's really simple for the teachers to download the lesson. The presentation is taking it step by step through it, so there's no prior knowledge really, in a
Yeah,
sense, needed. It's also adaptable, so it's a Word document lesson. There's a 50-minute lesson, but the teachers can take it and edit it. But in a big part of it is that we're not saying to the teachers, this is exactly what you should do.
yeah,
So we've just taken the Squarespace shopping channel and the fantastically talented Emil Bloom, who's working with us, who's one of our students, and he's literally broken Squarespace as a formula, but it's set up like a shopping channel, so
yeah,
the teachers can go in and take a lesson, like a pair of trousers added, then take a top and put that together, and they can create it. And what we want to do is empower our teachers, but also give them the autonomy to change.
yeah,
So when you have a lesson that's created by Skyscanner or like yourselves, or
mm,
then a teacher has the power to say, well, actually, this is what the real world needs. And I'm just delivering that. I'm just supporting that.
yeah,
And um, that's the exciting thing. And in all of the project, the key focus has been a table. And that's an interesting thing, because we're an industry, and creative industries in particular, there's a lot of ego, and there's a lot of competition.
yeah,
And the same is true in education. There's competition between the universities and colleges, and yet we have all managed to come and sit round the table, and nobody is saying this is mine. Everyone is saying let's do something.
yeah,
So each person, like Signal and Whitespace, you become a contributor,
yeah,
and your lessons sit under, and you have an opportunity to tell a little bit about yourself to the school, and then your lessons sit under your name.
yeah,
And that's been the most inspiring and refreshing part of it, is that everyone comes partly because we wished someone had told us at 13,
yeah. There's absolutely that. That's for sure.
and also that we need to act fast, that our world is changing, and our students and our young people are going to have to adapt really quickly.
Yeah, and it's also the schools need to adapt as well. Like I suppose personal insight from personal
Yeah.
relationship, but like the system's broken.
Mhm.
Like it is broken, and whether they want to admit it or not is up to them. But it's broken,
Mhm.
and the teachers are well. There's a severe lack of teachers for one because it's no longer really that enticing a job, um, because of the amount of stress and workload and all this kind of stuff and the pressure that they kind of get put under. So I can imagine like we were at
Yeah.
that kind of event at Whitespace, which was kind of interacting with the teachers, and they couldn't believe it. Like they were like a
Yeah.
sponge, just like we would absolutely love this content and all this kind of stuff because it was
Yeah.
like a breath of fresh air for them, you know?
And I think that, from a teacher's perspective, and lots of the teachers have given us feedback, and when we all come together, we say, what's your why?
Mm,
Why are you here? And one of the teachers said, I'm here because the goalposts change every 6 months,
yeah,
but my resources don't. And we thought, okay, well, we're not going to change the goalposts for you again, but we are going to give you resources.
yeah.
And another one
And they're
said,
like evergreen resources as well. Like,
absolutely.
we've done one that happened to be about empathy, but there's ones about branding yourself
Yeah,
or
or ditch the device, or save our seas, or
yeah,
there's one
yeah.
on bringing kindness and more kindness into the world with Studio LR. There's one on stuff on looking at data. It's all about basically kind of problem solving.
Mm,
And I think the interesting thing from the school pupils' point of view is we're not saying there's a right answer. In fact, we're actually encouraging them to fail.
yeah. Or it's just saying, yeah, there's no right answer, but there's tons of better ways of been doing it, so to speak.
Absolutely, yeah,
Setting a program up of this magnitude uh, certainly cannot be an easy feat. I know you've been almost on a tour of Scotland recently, but what are some of the other struggles that you've, I suppose, encountered that you weren't prepared for when you're thinking about starting the
I
program?
think the lovely thing when you work with employers, you get used to fake it till you make it.
Yeah.
And that aspect of winging it, we
We're
don't
pretty good
know.
at that.
We're pretty good, but that isn't something that sits naturally in education.
No.
So I think there was a lot of, people perhaps who didn't believe it was going to happen, and certainly wasn't going to happen with the speed that we were predicting it was going to happen. And also just, it's a non-profit, it's all for free. I had to learn how to write funding applications, which is a kind of a totally different.
Yeah, I can imagine. I've never had to do that
Oh
before,
my
but
goodness, yeah, that's been a challenge. But every time I would think, this is hard. I don't know how we're going to do this. Someone would walk in and someone would sit round the table and they had the answer
hmm.
and they would inspire you. Or you'd get an email from someone who said, this is fantastic, keep going.
Or you just happen to think of that. Oh, actually, I know such and such.
A-
They'd be the perfect person to
Absolutely.
ask and be able
Yes.
to help out.
Yeah.
And given the subject matter, I can imagine no one really has probably said no to
No.
the cause. So
And one of the phrases I use a lot, and I think when you were starting up this podcast, one of the
hmm.
conversations we had, and I said to you, leap and the net will appear,
Yeah,
you
I
know,
remember that significantly. Yeah,
and look at you, look at how well this is done. And that leap is,
talking about fake it till you make it. This podcast is a manifestation of that statement.
well, it's working. But very often it's that leap that scares us.
hmm.
And we can pass it by and go, well, it's not my job or just not now. And then you turn out in 6 months' time and someone else has done it.
Yeah.
And I just think it's that energy to leap that is a creative, thing.
Hmm.
And it is something that there's always something good will come from it. The net will come.
Yeah, precisely. And even if the net isn't the one that you thought it would be, it's a
Absolutely.
learning curve to aim for a
Yes.
different net.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I know that the students in the schools must love this stuff just because seeing some of the video footage that's on the Daydream Believers website, you just see their faces absolutely light up.
Yeah.
But what's the reception with the teachers been like?
I think the feedback's been really good, and I think the teachers. I think first of all that this is free.
Yeah.
That we're not, and it will always be free. I think that is a gift, so that they don't have to look for resources where they don't have that. And I also that we're a partnership. We need the teachers to help us shape it. They are our customers, and we value them and
Yeah.
value their opinion. And I think that doesn't always happen.
Hmm.
But you know,
The decisions are
yeah,
often made for them. So
absolutely. And anyone who's spent a short time in a secondary school will have any degree of admiration, I think, for our teachers.
yeah.
Um, that's hard work.
I mean, I did the Bema Digital Day, which I'm doing again.
Yeah,
It's another great initiative to get involved with for those who are listening. But
yeah,
yeah, even presenting to a class of S4 pupils or whatever it
yeah,
was a completely different realm in terms of a challenge of keeping a client engaged is one thing, keeping a
yeah,
whole class of S4 pupils is a completely different thing. But
yeah, yeah,
managed very admirably.
yeah.
I
Well
think we
done.
did well. I
Yeah,
think, but
yeah.
yeah. Um, so is there a specific age group that these kind of resources are aimed at, or is it kind of just open to
Well,
really any?
we kind of thought about 13-year-olds because it's quite interesting, and it maybe is only particular to Scotland, but at 13 you make timetable choices at
Right.
a time
Okay.
when your hormones are at their height. And peer pressure is
Emotional time.
absolutely. And very often kids are choosing choices because their friends are doing it, and they're often doing it, they're not so well informed. And we thought, well, if we bring in that information, and if they can see that these are the skills that you need for a job, then that has to be of a benefit. But they are resources that could be used. We've got primary schools using them at the minute. We've got some of the universities looking at some of the content
Wow.
and developing it and adding to it. So it's there as a kind of a foundation.
Yeah, like open source.
Open source, use it, take it, do what you want with it.
That's the kind of one thing I do love about it, because very rarely do you get so many different contributors in one industry, but the kind of diverse range and kind of broad spectrum of them all contributing, like you say, with no ego. It's just like a common.
Yes,
We all have the kind of common goal in mind, and we all want to help, and therefore you're kind of stripped of any ego or
absolutely,
ownership or anything like that. And at the end of the day, it's like, who really gives a shit about owning the content? It's not
absolutely.
about that. It's not about you. It's about the students at the other end of the
Yeah.
computer, or the teachers at the other end of the computer. At the end of the day, you know.
And I think that's from it as a contributor when you see your lesson or you look at the fact that your lesson's now in 31 countries, and you think, well, somewhere in Cambodia, some someone's using my lesson,
Someone's
working away.
cringingly watching my piece to camera that I did for our lesson. um, Probably thinking, my God, they're pale in Scotland. Uh, how, when did the program launch, and kind of how's the initial reception been so
So
far?
it launched in August 29, well, August
Yeah.
of this year. We're still in 2019. Hello. This podcast has been gone on quite a long time. Yeah. So 2019, and it'll be 2 months now in October 19th. And yeah, the response has been fantastic, way beyond what we expected.
Yeah.
The lessons have been downloaded. There's been, I think I just checked about 2 weeks ago. There was 11,000, visits on the
Wow.
website. So
That's
yeah,
amazing.
it's there, and people are interested. And it's inspiring us to want to do more and keep developing it.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, hopefully talking about it on the podcast will help as well.
Yeah, yeah,
I know it's still obviously young, being
yeah.
only 2 months old, but do you have a kind of goal or some form of vision where you kind of want to take it?
Yeah, we want to become the kind of go-to resource for creative thinking.
Hmm.
And that's something that we're working with in Scotland with the Qualifications Authority to actually look at accrediting an award now in creative thinking in our schools.
Yeah.
And that's something that will be informed by the content on Daydream
Wow.
Believers. Creative thinking is going to be a very much a key part of education, and it's going to be something that we're all, everyone's going to be looking at. Where
Mm.
is that sitting within your education system? Because yeah, it's the one thing at the minute that our robots are challenged to do,
Yeah.
and it's the one thing that kind of at the minute is setting us apart from them.
Yeah, that'd be fantastic. How have actually SQA been behaving with the whole thing?
They
Did they initially get their backs up at all, or
Well,
were they
no,
okay?
they've been fantastic. Yeah. Hello, any SQA listeners. They've been fantastic. And we're now at a stage where we're in discussion with them, with the universities, with all our partners to look at, okay, let's give this content that is created by employers an actual placement in our schools.
Mm.
And we're hopeful that within the next 12 months that will be the case.
Oh wow, that'll be
So that's
amazing.
quite exciting.
Yeah, that is
Yeah.
very exciting. You have an event coming up on the 1st of November as well. Can you tell us a bit about
Yeah,
that?
so we've got an event. You can find it on Event Space, Daydream Believers, and it's for teachers, employers, anyone interested in finding out a little bit more about the program. It's an opportunity to come along and meet some of the contributors. People are already working with us.
I'll be there.
Good man, yeah. But also to help us shape things. So if that is our aim, to kind of create a space in the timetable to get creativity influenced every discipline, so creativity in science and history, all of that, and for all of our teachers and that to see the value in it,
Mm.
then we're going to need help.
Yeah.
That's a big challenge.
Yeah, absolutely. For anyone who is interested in kind of finding out more about Daydream Believers, if you head to daydreambelievers.co.uk, there's an amazing website there that has some amazing videos that just kind of, when you see the reactions of these students in the schools to some of the content and things they've been exposed to, it's absolutely heartwarming and quite emotional to watch at
Yeah.
times as well. So please head over if you're kind of interested in finding out more by all means, or get in touch with Helena, I suppose.
Yeah.
Obviously, program's live. You've got an event coming up,
Yeah.
obviously, but is there like what's the next kind of, I suppose, step or thing on the horizon for Daydream Believers?
I think just l- sharing the story. It's a quite an interesting story, just in terms of what happens when people let go of their ego
Mm,
and come together as a community. And so that part of the process is quite interesting. And then looking at ways that we can develop the product.
yeah.
Um, we would like to be able to develop the web page, add additional parts to it. Um, but if we just even talk to one kid, if one kid out there who at the minute is kind of disengaging at
Mm,
13, is staring out the window and thinking there has to be more. And if we can get to that kid and tell him, do you know what? You're a natural born problem solver.
yeah, yeah.
You think creatively, and you are an amazing individual. And we can just support him or her to believe that, then all of this has been absolutely worthwhile.
Yeah, I mean, just with the way, even I know it's a long time since I've been in high school, so it's inevitably changed. But I've said on the podcast before that when I had like my kind of careers chat, I was actually talked off the ledge of wanting to follow design because back then it wasn't people just weren't even aware of the opportunities that it could present as a career
Yeah,
back then. But I think now design, creativity, being a
yeah,
developer or like coding, working in tech, whatever you want to call it, this realm is so popular now. And there's actually like a digital skills gap that needs to be filled because we have such a demand for it but not enough people actually coming into the
absolutely.
industry. The earlier we can get these people funneled into these avenues, then the better.
Absolutely.
Like
Yeah,
you say, they're your future customers at the end
yeah,
of the day.
yeah,
And I honestly believe as well, if the schools can do more to kind of capture them at a younger age, then we're in one of the very fortunate industries where you know as an educator at
yeah.
college, maybe you're not going to appreciate me saying this,
No,
but you don't need a degree or you don't need a
absolutely. Yeah,
qualification.
yeah,
If you have got a natural talent and
yeah,
you're also a very nice person,
absolutely.
personality over your portfolio, as I always say.
Yeah,
But if you do have a good portfolio and you're a pleasant person to be around,
yeah,
you'll always be welcomed into an agency, a startup, a tech company, whatever it may
yeah,
be.
yeah,
I can imagine the actual, number of people graduating with these kind of degrees
yeah,
might actually go down in the next 10 years
yeah,
because
yeah.
people will just be naturally getting those skills earlier.
Yeah. And
Uh,
I think, we have a responsibility as a community in the creative industries at the minute. And we're kind of guilty of doing what we do at school where you put your hand around. Remember when you were afraid of somebody copying, you hid your work. And we have all these skills and we know how they work, but we're keeping them a little bit to ourselves. And I think we need to go back into our schools. We need to talk to science teachers. We need to talk to history, and we need to share it
yeah.
right across the curriculum so that there is an understanding of the value of that. And what that will do is transform, I believe, for our young people, subjects that maybe they've disengaged with because they think, well, I'm not good at maths, or
Mm,
I don't like science. But if you actually boil everything down, if you look at science, it's about problem solving. All of these things come
absolutely.
back to creative thinking, problem solving, and critical thinking. And I'm putting a call out to anyone within the creative industries. If you have something that you think you can give back to our schools, if you have something that you wished you'd known at 13, get in touch and we'll share it.
Yeah. And I can even put that one further. You will have something to share. Even if you don't think you do, you
Yeah,
definitely do.
yeah,
Everybody has something that they can share with something like the program of the Daydream Believers program. Everyone in the creative industry will have something to contribute. So by all means, please do get in touch and help Helena
yeah.
out.
Help us off. Thank you.
But yeah, can I just say, and I know you're probably going to try and deflect this because
Well, hold on.
I,
We
kn-
have a phrase in Ireland. Can I just interrupt?
yeah, go
So in
for it.
Ireland, we're fond of the old potato.
Oh,
So in
no
Ireland,
stereotyping here
just
going on, but
just
you're
just
Irish. It's okay.
I'm allowed. I'm
Yeah,
Irish.
yeah.
You're allowed to slag your own country. But there's a phrase called hot potato.
All right, yeah.
So, when someone gives you a compliment, it's like, they're throwing a hot potato and you want to throw it back.
Okay,
So
well, like,
I won't hot potato.
okay, well, since the day I met you, like 8+ years ago, whatever it was, you've not only been supportive of me, both professionally in my career and personally, but you have this like unsurpassed enthusiasm for the kids that you teach and everything that you do, and like even the guys that kind of from Signal kind of got involved with the mentoring last week, they're like just ranting and raving about it in such a positive way. And you probably again hot potato this, but I've never really ever seen you stressed or worried or not smiling or not willing to like sit and listen to somebody, uh, which is just absolutely amazing to see. And everything you do is from the heart. And I think in general we just need more people like you.
Well, that's very, very kind. And I feel very humbled and desperately want a hot potato. But yeah, well, thank you very much. And
No,
I
it's one of
do.
these things though. Like if I heard like Daydream Believers program kind of being I suppose started by an agency or a big startup like a Skyscanner or a Fangio, whoever you may be. If I heard that it was kind of coming out of something like that, you'd be like, nice idea, but it's probably going to have a bit of a shelf life and all this kind of stuff,
Yeah.
and maybe not go. Not because they don't care, it's just because you're a business at the end of the day, and other things can end up taking up your attention. But anyone else would probably say they're a bit crazy. But as the old saying goes, that Steve Jobs, famously put in an ad, the ones that are crazy enough to think that they can change the world are usually the ones that do. And having a Helena Good behind the Daydream Believers program, I can only see it actually being an absolute flying success. So fingers crossed for you, obviously, but I'm sure you don't even need fingers and toes crossed. I'm sure you'll be more than fine just yourself.
Well, thank you. And but I can I just come back in
Yeah.
with one little one little boiled hot potato, just to say that none of this happens with just one person, and that's what I say, that the table has been the most interesting. Everybody has pulled their chair up to the table, and that's been the exciting thing. And it's absolutely a collaboration of people coming together.
Yeah. And
Um,
that's one thing as a contributor,
yeah,
we've maybe not contributed as much as we'd like because we've been busy, but uh, it is never a chore.
no,
Like that's the kind of
absolutely.
good thing about like this stuff. Like sometimes when you work in the creative industry and you're asked to kind of do a talk or whatever it may be, like you put it off and you put it off, and then it suddenly becomes this chore that you have at the back of your mind, and if anything gives you some anxiety because
Yeah,
you're like,
yeah,
God, I need to get rid of this. Like working with the Daydream Believers and yourself is it's always just like a breeze because the enthusiasm is like never ending,
yeah,
and you're doing something good for the good of future students and obviously helping teachers as well. So I feel very fortunate
yeah.
to be a very small part in
Well, thank you very much. That's very kind.
But yeah, not only have the work that you've done with Daydream Believers, but same with the mentoring scheme at Edinburgh College. It's just awesome to see how it's kind of grown in the past like 10 years that or 8 years that I've been involved with it. So long may it continue. And thank you very much for coming on the show
Well,
as
thank
well.
you very much. Have mouthful
Yeah,
talk. Thank
hopefully.
you.
Well, that's probably should be on my gravestone to be fair. So I can definitely resonate with that. But hopefully, people listen to the podcast and will check out Daydream Believers, and we can kind of help spread the word, and you can dominate the world.
Yeah, and thank you, and good luck, Gregor. And you're an inspiration to us all. Keep going, keep talking.
Oh, thank you very much. It means a lot. But yeah, thank you very much for
Okay,
coming on the show, Helena.
brilliant. Thank you.
So to wrap up, as per usual, folks, please head over to the website, themitmpodcast.com. That's themitmpodcast.com. You can find out more about the show. You can find out all the different platforms it's on, and you can link through, and please hit the subscribe button when you do, and that will make sure that you get notified when a new episode goes up. And while you're there, please, please, please leave a review. It's not only great to help bring other people into the show, but as I keep saying, it's also just nice to hear what you're thinking of the show as well. So that's it from us here. Thank you very much for listening, and I hope you found some method in the madness.